Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Travel Mug podcast. So, for people who love to travel, which is obviously us, we are always typically trying to find a way to travel more. And for many of us, the main issues come down to money and time off from work. So, this week we are talking to Jen from Jen on the Run. Jen has moved from America to Europe and built a successful freelance career that lets her control her time so she can travel more. Jen, thanks for coming on the show. We're excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be here.
Wow. So, Jen, tell us about yourself and when your love of travel started.
Yeah, so I would say my love of travel really started from an early age. I was very lucky. My parents took me when I was a little kid to Europe. So that was like my first exposure to somewhere completely different. And I don't think I really knew at the time like what much of the historical significance was or anything, but at least I had the exposure. And then from there, like as I got older, my mom drove us, my sister and I, from Michigan to Oregon on a road trip. And then the next summer from Michigan to South Dakota. So, like, there was just like a lot of travel from an early age. And I think that just like really inspired a lifelong love of travel.
Yeah, I love that. I think, similar for Megan and I, you get the bug. Like people who travel, they know.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Europe is my favorite. So imagine going there first and seeing that first and then being like, this is how life should be lived. I think that every time I go to Europe. So that was your first trip. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was so lucky. I mean, like, like a little kid with gelato, like sitting in a piazza, like running after pigeons, like that was basically me. And yeah, I like just had so much nostalgia about that for a long
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah. So let's like fast forward a little bit to your growing up and choosing a career. So did you always plan to work as a freelancer, or did you originally have a more like traditional quote unquote career path in mind?
um I actually really wanted to be like high-powered corporate executive, like wear like a pantsuit, like come home with a briefcase. That's what I wanted to be, which is like wild because I did like pretty much the opposite of that. So like I either wanted that or I wanted to get a job at a advertising agency or a creative agency. So I really wanted like the traditional like just work hard, go to the office, but it didn't really turn out that way at all. So, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
how did that lead, how did that like career path, how did that diversion happen? How did you sort of get into freelancing? Sort of walk us through like how you sort of went in this direction.
Yeah, so my first job out of college was working for a woman who had her own business and she worked from home. And like given like this was 2013, so it was like unusual at that time to be working from home and also being a solopreneur basically. So I was her marketing assistant and I worked from home and I would come to her home for meetings and we would go to like on-site client meetings as well. But basically like I didn't know it at the time, but like it was an excellent example. And then through her I met my now mentor who also worked in a similar fashion. So like, I feel like I stumbled so fortunately into the space because I had these examples of women business owners who were, running their own show and kind of taught me like, oh, this is how you can do it. This is how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember for me in, I don't know, grade 9, I think when you do like take your kids to work day, I went to work with my stepmom and my stepmom at the time, so this would have been like oh 2000, let's say 5 or something around there. And my stepmom worked from home, which in 2005 was very, very
Mm.
uncommon. and she was a work from home travel agent. So we planned a fake Disney trip together, and then we went to the grocery store and got ingredients, and we came home and made soup. And I was like, "This is the life. I love this life."
Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
This is how
exactly.
it's how life
You
is
know?
meant to be lived.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you can work and make soup at the same time. It's like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So, a lot of people get overwhelmed with the first steps of starting to freelance. So, how did you kind of get over, I'm going to say, like limiting beliefs about like starting a freelancing job? Because I know for myself, I've worked corporate, I've worked freelance. There's a big mental barrier to like going it on your own, let's say. So, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that is such a common experience that we all face. And especially in the freelancing space, and if you're new to freelancing, there are those, limiting beliefs like, why would a client choose to go with me? Or how do I set my rates? Or are my rates too low or are they too high? So I think a lot of those roadblocks come up in doing mindset work and really knowing your value. Like, I realized that when I did an exercise I worked with a business coach for, I think almost a year. And doing that, working with a coach really helped me see, like, I journaled about what is my value? What are the unique things that I bring to the table? And by identifying those strengths, I saw like, yes, like everyone may be a writer or a social media manager. There may be other people like offering those services, but there's a reason why like my particular clients continue to keep working with me month to month. It's because they like the experience of working with me. They like this, the certain strengths that I bring to the table. So I think that doing an exercise where you're really defining your unique value and really believing in that in yourself, it just, you know, it's always an evolving process. It's never perfect, like there's still things I'm learning now, it's always an evolution, but I think that that is really like such a helpful exercise, especially in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think too, like I think that's a helpful exercise honestly in life is sort of like writing down, things that you know to be positives or strengths and how you could be utilizing that. And I think if you're starting your own business and putting yourself out into the world, that's kind of like a really strong and important foundation to have because if you don't believe in yourself, how are other people going to believe in what you're going to offer them? So I think that obviously the business coach, instilled a lot of really great things for you to do, but I guess how did you then make that transition to start putting yourself out there? I'm sure that was a scary step to start actually marketing yourself and putting yourself out there. So walk us through that.
Yeah, so how it happened was I did have a full-time job where I was working in an office space, and I had a really long commute. And I do think it was a bit of good fortune that came my way that I got my first client. And so from there, I was able to start pitching clients. So once I got that
Mm.
first client, then it was like, okay, how can I go through this process of building on the momentum? So I think like continuing to pitch is what really like led me to, having more stability.
Mm, I think so. For context, I used to be in 2020 when, crazy things happened around the world. I was a full-time massage therapist, and my job was shut down for several months and I could not work. And at that time, I'd had a travel blog for quite a few years. So I had some skills there. And one of my friends posted online, "Hey, I'm looking for a virtual assistant. I need them to be able to do this, 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 and this." And I was like, I can do all of those things. And I basically started a virtual assistant business based on that because my friend needed a client and I was like, "Hey, I can do this." So I think it's if you want to start a freelance business or even just to have it as a side gig and not have it even as your whole gig, it's just you need to like keep an eye out. What are your business friends looking for? What do they need? Or do you have those skills? And really, has always been the biggest thing for me. Whenever I've been freelancing, it's always been someone I know or a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing. And so, really, like leaning in on your network and messaging people and saying, "Hey, I'm starting this freelance business. These are my skills. Like, if you know anyone that's looking, like, please pass along my name." Is it's scary to do. It's scary to put yourself out there, right? But I think that it's a really important step when you're trying to get your foot in the door in this business.
That's exactly it. What I found was it was the personal connections that I had made with people, just genuine connections, like where I wanted to meet for a coffee and have conversation. And maybe it led to something where we worked together. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it was just like conversation and, a nice out after, a day out. But like that's what I found is like I connected with other people in my space and then, people started referring me. And once I think you become known as, oh, that's the person who does social media management, then people think of you when they hear of opportunities and they like it's just mutually beneficial. Like it just becomes like a really positive, like, oh, I saw this, I'm passing it your way. Or, if you know someone who's interested, like you just kind of create that exchange and it's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, when you meet people, it might not lead to a direct, business relationship with them, but it leads to them thinking of you when they see opportunities. And I think that's something really important to keep in mind because I think some people have the mindset that if like, oh, I connected with this person and it didn't lead to them being a client, then it was a failure, but like it 100% wasn't.
Right, right. And well, and I think also like I do want to add on that is like how you your personal branding, like what you choose to become known for is also so important. And I think there's this concept that I feel like many of us have heard of now that like where you manifest or you attract like what is it again? It's like if you present yourself a certain way, you're going to attract, it's going to come to you instead of chasing after it, you know? Like you kind of just become magnetic based on like what you're putting out into the world will gravitate back towards you. And, like out of fear of sounding too woo woo, like I do believe in that, like I think
Mm.
like if you share your message in a genuine, authentic way, people will just gravitate towards you and they'll know that, oh, like, she's the one who does social media management. Like they'll
Mhm.
remember you and they'll think of you.
Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. I think it's really important to sort of put yourself out there in a way that you want to receive people. And I think that it's really important that people know who you are authentically because I think you can't start any relationship, whether it's business or personal, with a front. So I think if you're putting yourself out there and you're being authentic with people, that will come back to you. And I completely agree with that. And that's exactly sort of what you're needing to do as a freelancer. And I think that that leads really well into the next question because there's probably people, potentially thinking of doing this. And from your own experience, or even maybe other freelancers, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that new freelancers make?
Yeah, that is such a good question because I think when you're new, the most common mistake that people make is one, not signing a contract, and two, charging too low, setting your rates too low, or working for free. So I would say I'll start with the first one. And I think the contract is a big one because I understand where it comes from. You're like, well, I feel like I can trust this person. You kind of tell yourself, like, oh, like, I'm not too worried. They're going to pay me. Or like, I don't want to, we have this deal and I don't want to send this a contract and scare them away.
Right.
Like it looks so legal. So I feel like all of these thought processes I've had a million times. But when I talk to friends who are starting out in freelancing, like it can cause so much grief later on by not clearly stating, like, okay, these are the deliverables, this is what you're getting. We have it written down. This is the payment structure. You know, this is the deadline for the payment, or we're dividing into two payments, however you want to structure your contract. Just having that piece of paper can just save you so much like time and hours that like may cost you more in the long run with the amount of time you're spending, on the admin of like getting paid.
Right.
So I think having a contract is just a must no matter what you're doing. So that's a big thing. And then the second, I would say starting out, like if you're new, yes, you do want to have a sample portfolio, like you want to be able to show the work that you've done. So I do think it is fair to gradually increase your rates over time. But that said, like do research before you throw out a number and do be competitive in this space. Don't undersell yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think it's a almost like a rite of passage mistake that most freelancers make is like starting too low and then being like, "Oh no, I need to increase my rates," like in order to cover because when you're self-employed, you have way more costs. Like it's not the same as like your hourly rate at your 9 to 5 corporate job, right? Like you need to account for all of the costs that you have, any like programs and systems that you're using. So you can't just throw out a number. You do really need to put some time into figuring out what that number needs to be for you.
Exactly, exactly. And I do think like the right kind of client, or the client that you want to be working with, is also going to understand that that's baked into your rate.
Mhm.
Your rate is also including the cost of your health insurance that you have to pay, you know, on your own. Your rate is also including the cost of like the taxes that you will need to pay. Um, and like you mentioned, will be the cost of equipment. If you're a freelance photographer, that's camera gear, lenses, flashes, everything. So all of that goes into your rate and the client will see that. So you should be charging more than, you know, what you might imagine.
Yeah, 100%. I think another thing that people, before they start freelancing, one of the things they get hung up on is they feel like they need to have everything figured out in advance before they get that first client. And you do need to have some things figured out, but so many things that you figure out along the way and you change your systems to make them work better once you're working with clients. And I think that it stops a lot of people from getting started thinking like, "Oh, I need to figure out 50 million things," when really you need to figure out 5 and just get going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true because I am definitely one to overthink everything in any possible way that I can to
Welcome to
avoid,
the club. Yeah.
yeah, like, that is definitely me. Um, Overcomplicate everything. But that said, I think that at some point, yeah, just do the thing,
Yeah.
just try, just outreach, like initiate and reach out to the client, like pitch the client you want.
Yeah.
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 I think
Yeah.
going even back to the contract for a second, I think if people can reframe that and see it as a protection for themselves rather than a burden on the client, I think is a way that you should probably look at it. Like this is your livelihood and this is your business. So if you sort of set that precedent and have that piece of paper which seems scary to present or scary to think about, I think it's really important protection for yourself. And so if you're trying to make this a serious business, I think that's one way to reframe it in your mind and just say, you know what, I'm just protecting myself going forward if I need to be paid to live and this is the work I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And, you know, most things I feel like there's so many things we sign contracts for, in
Yeah.
other ways that like, yes,
All those
I
Apple
think
agreements, we're like, sure.
Yeah. I accept.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Y-
So it's mutually beneficial. It protects
Yeah.
you and the client and
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I want to go back to talking about like identifying skills that people out there, listeners out there might have uh that they could turn into a freelance business. So, how did you think like, "Oh, I have these skills. Actually, I could be doing this for myself instead of working for someone else?"
Yeah. So, in my particular experience, there are a lot of realms now that exist that you can do as a freelancer. In my experience, what I have done is copywriting and social media marketing. Um, so the creative art, like anything creative, I mean, that I can think of at the moment. So, generally the creative industries like can be done freelance. You
Mhm.
have graphic design. So I think there are certain skills that are a bit more adaptable to having a freelance career. um, there are challenges like if you physically need to be in a location, if you're a school teacher, for example, that would be very hard. But you could, well, I guess there's online teaching now. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, see, I mean, there's just so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess like if you really want to make a hard pivot and go into a different career path, I guess what I would recommend is look at the skills that you have and look at like what exists in the freelance space and see like what fits best. I'm forgetting the term right now, but there's like a new like business manager type of like service offering that I find absolutely fascinating and like you can work with someone who will like organize your whole business operations and I find that absolutely incredible and people are offering that and it's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah. It takes all kinds. I mean, that's for sure. And I think you're right. Like, there's so many different creative spaces, and people just have to maybe make a list of what do I do best and what can I prove that I'm able to do, and then sort of see where that slots in to what they could do potentially for freelancing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, like we said, you have been living abroad. So, let's talk to us and our listeners about the realities of like working and living abroad. Obviously, like Instagram makes it look so glamorous and lovely, but like, what does it really take to live that kind of life?
Yeah, definitely. I think Instagram makes it look so easy and like you could just like pick up and move. And when in actuality, like there is a lot more work behind the scenes that goes on that isn't always obvious from the surface level. So I would say, in my experience, there's every day is a little different. And I think that it's exciting and challenging at the same time. I'm navigating cultural differences, I'm navigating learning a new language. So the actual puzzle pieces of making a move abroad, like you need to prepare logistically, like how am I going to move my things? What do I want to do with the things that exist already, where I'm living? So just between the finances, logistics, like practicalities, and then like the emotional side of everything, like, you know, all of this.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so much, there's quite a lot that goes into making a move abroad, but I truly believe like if you want it, then like it is definitely like go after it.
Yeah. How did you find, as a freelancer who kind of works from anywhere, how did you find like a community of other people? Like, I'm such an extrovert. I'd be so lonely. Like, I don't want to just sit in my apartment on my laptop all day. Like, I need to get out there. So, how did you find like meeting new people and finding your community?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I'm like restarting completely from scratch. So, um finding people actually I have found fairly easy. I'm based in Florence. So here there are a million opportunities. There are meetups, there are language exchanges. I joined a co-working space. There's like um Facebook groups. Like I've met people through Facebook groups, or sports. Like I just joined a touch rugby league. Like I
Yeah.
never saw that one coming, you know. Like I'm still learning how to play rugby, but it's like that's what I do love in living in like a larger city abroad is that there are several ways to connect with people. I also lived last year I was living in Sardinia, and that was a very different experience. There weren't as many opportunities to meet like English speakers, there were, not many like fellow like Americans or even, North Americans in general in my town. So that posed more challenges, but towards meeting people. But here there's like countless opportunities. So it also kind of depends on like where you decide you want to live.
I think that's an important thing for people to consider before they choose a place to live. Like, how important is it for me to have more opportunities to meet people? I think that's something that uh, I maybe would have overlooked. So that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you've been traveling for quite some time. Where have you lived? I'd be interested to know. So Sardinia and obviously Florence. So besides that,
Yeah, so those are my two most recent places. Um, I also lived for a brief period of time in Lisbon for, I guess, a more extended, slow travel kind of situation, and also in Budapest. So I lived those two places for like slower travel experiences. Not quite anything like Sardinia or Florence now. These are like my very much like most longest term living abroad living situations. But uh I would say Lisbon and Budapest were also, yeah, extended stays.
Yeah. How did you choose Italy?
Oh, Italy.
or did
Well,
Italy choose you, Jen? How did it go?
that is such a good question. Yeah. I think that Italy is actually my first love, like like I've fallen in love with a lot of places around the world. But I think it does help that I am part Italian, so there is a connection through, some of the culture. Although I have learned so much more about Italian culture by living here than I ever knew before. Um, so yeah, I think I chose Italy because my heart just sang here, and I did come originally to pursue the have my dual citizenship or my Italian citizenship recognized, and then I just decided I made friends here, I built a community here, and I said, well, I do have distant family and I have friends now here, so I think I'm gonna stay.
Nice.
So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, amazing. Do you have any travel plans coming up that you can tell us about?
Yes, I am actually leaving for Spain tomorrow.
Very exciting.
So
Yes.
yeah, I still need to finish packing my suitcase, but it'll happen. It'll get done.
Oh, I've got the shivers just thinking
I
about the fact that
know.
you just said that.
It must be a Jen thing. We pack at the last minute. It's just what it
It'll
is.
be fine.
It is.
I'm always on the run, so
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be
Aptly
fine.
so.
Do I have my phone and my passport? Yes, everything else I can buy. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
You
it's
probably
all
don't
gonna
even need
work
your
out.
passport, I'm assuming. Are you do you even need your passport to go there?
A carta. I have
Okay.
a carta de identità,
Hmm,
which I can travel through the EU with, but
that's what I thought.
Nice. Amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah. Very exciting. So, if our listeners want to find you online, find out more about what you are up to, where can they find you?
they can find me on my Instagram. It's Jen on the Run with two N's at the end. And then my blog is jenontherun.com.
Excellent. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Huge thank you to you, Jen, for joining us. We are sure this will be inspiring to our listeners, and it's really great to sort of hear about people living their dreams, and that's amazing. As for us, you can find us online at Travel Mug Podcast or our website, travelmugpodcast.com. If you want to support the show, you can always leave us a review or buy us a coffee at the link in our show notes. And until next time, safe travels and bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.